There's two benefits to the IRA LLC. There's the administrative convenience when you're making investments, and there's also the asset protection. So when you're using it, think about investments for your self-directed IRA. Think, do I need the administrative convenience or do I need the asset protection?
Do bookkeeping. Just because it's not your LLC, you have a duty as the manager's LLC to track the expenses. This IRA LLC someday is going to get shut down. The money's going to go back to the custodian. You've got to be able to have a paper trail here.
And we are excited to be with you talking about an awesome strategy for self-directing, the IRA LLC or Checkbook IRA. We both use that strategy ourselves.
Yes, and it's very, very common. And regrettably, there's a lot of misinformation out there in the marketplace on what these do, why, how you set them up. Can you be the manager of them? We are going to dispel all those myths today, give you the straight answers with authority, with two tax lawyers today who have been in the trenches doing this for over 20 years. And Matt Sorensen has, of course, the best-selling book on this and stands behind every letter and word. I'm excited. This is going to be good.
Yeah, this is a whole chapter in my book, the Self-Directed IRA Handbook, by the way. And there's a lot of variations to this we're going to be talking about, too. So let's talk about why people use an IRA LLC, or sometimes people call it a checkbook IRA. It's the same thing. What this is, and let me explain what it is here for a second, and then we'll get into it.
30,000 feet. Yeah, I'll do the 20,000 feet. Okay, you do the 30,000.
Okay. All right. Okay. We got my little, we're skydiving
altimeter here.
Okay, all right, pull the chute or not. All right. Okay. All right. So what this is when you have a self-directed IRA, right? You open the account. We've already talked and been through that. You've got the money in the self-directed IRA, and you're like, well, I want to buy some real estate. Well, you can buy real estate directly with the IRA, and the IRA is going to be on title to it, and the IRA is going to get the income, and the IRA is going to pay the expenses, but you're going to have to be authorizing us to do everything as your IRA custodian at Directed IRA.
May I just say, pain in the butt.
Yeah. Okay. Now, for some investments, that doesn't matter. You're investing into a private company, into a private fund. It doesn't matter. You don't need an IRA LLC because we're just going to invest it, and you're going to own a little bit of an LLC, that some private fund, for example. But when you're doing a real estate deal, what will happen is, what the IRA LLC is, rather than the IRA owning the real estate, your IRA is going to own 100% of a newly created LLC. You're going to be the manager of the LLC. You don't own the LLC at all. Your IRA owns the LLC 100%. Now, the nice thing about the LLC is it has a LLC business checking account. The money from your IRA gets invested into that LLC business checking account, which you can be a signer on because you're the manager. Now, when you're going out to do a real estate deal, it's not Directed Trust Company, FBO, Matt Sorensen's IRA buying the real estate. It's XYZ Investments LLC that's buying the real estate, or whatever you called your IRA LLC. And you're the manager. You have a bank account. You're sending the wire. You're cutting the check. You're signing the contract. You're buying it at auction. Okay?
Easy button.
Easy button. The title company understands what the heck an LLC is. You've done it before. And a lot of our clients that are real estate investors in particular use LLCs a lot. They're familiar with it. It's easy. But the difference here is you don't own it. Your IRA does.
Okay. All right. Now we're at 25,000 feet.
Okay. Yeah. And falling fast.
All right. So now let me say this another way. So you're excited to self-direct. In fact, I had this question the other day at an open forum I did with some doctors. And they said, well, isn't there a penalty when I pull the money out to go form the LLC? I was like, no, you're not pulling the money out of the IRA. And that's a very understandable question, because you're like, well, I got to get the money from the IRA to this LLC. Obviously, I'm pulling it out. I'm going to pay a penalty. I'm going to pay tax. No, what you're doing is, instead of your IRA buying Tesla stock, it's buying this little XYZ LLC that Matt described. So you're not taking the money out of your IRA. You're just directing, hence self-directing. You're directing us at Directed IRA to invest your IRA in this newly formed LLC, which we're going to talk about how to do all this in a moment. But just so you understand the concept, you're not taking the money out of the IRA. You're going to place it in this LLC and go do business in this LLC. No penalties, no tax, and you get to be the manager of that LLC, and why they call it a checkbook LLC. That's that. Someone named that. I still want to find out who the bozo was that named it that. We weren't, but it's kind of caught on, and so now people are like, oh, I want that checkbook LLC where I can write the checks and do things. So And it's not just real estate, Matt. Like, what other types of things does this LLC make sense for?
Yeah, I think real estate's the most common, where this is a rental or a flip, right? Because you're rehabbing it, you got to pay contractors and all this. And so all that checkbook control gives you some nice things, but there's also asset protection to it. Something happens on the property. They're not suing you. They're suing the LLC, and they get stuck there. They can't come after your property. They can't come after you personally. So that's nice with the
I like
IRLC.
it with notes
asset
too.
protection. Yeah,
notes are nice because money's coming and going.
So there's two. What I was going to say is there's two benefits to the IRA LLC. There's the administrative convenience when you're making investments, and there's also the asset protection. So when you're using it, think about, or you're thinking about investments for your self-directed IRA, think, do I need the administrative convenience or do I need the asset protection? The rental property, we're like, you get both. You got the administrative convenience, you got the asset protection. You're flipping a property, you're getting both. But let's say you're investing into a private fund. It's an LLC buying an apartment building. There's 100 other investors in it. That is an LLC already, so I get the asset protection. I don't need my own LLC that my IRA owns that then's investing into that. No benefit. There's not a lot of administrative work. I'm just making one investment, and then the cash flow or profits when the fund closes out or sells the property comes back. So I don't need it for that. So where do you need it? Yeah. Now, notes would be a good one because particularly if you do short-term notes, Mark and I do these. I've done short-term notes, and that's invested in quite a bit in my retirement account. And my IRA LLC is the one that cuts the checks and sends the wires. But these are 6-month loans. There's some points on them, and it's easier for me, even though I'm the CEO and I can sit in there and push the buttons. Two-party control. Someone else needs to push the buttons too. It's like we both got to turn the key at the same time.
We've seen war games. There's two people with the chain and the key.
So, but even though I obviously know the stuff and how to process things, get things through, I use the LLC just because I got a lot of transactions happening. I just want to keep it clean and easy, and so the IRA LLC works really well for me on the short-term notes. Now, I've done rental properties in mine as well. I like it for that. But I'll tell you, I have other investments and other self-directed accounts here because I have different accounts. They're invested in private funds. I have one invested in a private equity fund. I didn't use an IRA LLC for that. I also have a separate crypto IRA myself. I didn't use an IRA LLC for that. It's easier for crypto to go right onto the Gemini exchange with our crypto IRA product. So depending on what your asset and investment options or ideas are at the end, should inform you of whether the IRA LLC helps you or not.
Another situation where this IRA LLC can be really helpful, it's administrative. It gives you some asset protection when needed, but it also gives you flexibility for the next investment quickly. Yeah. So let's say you do a little note and money comes back, and then someone calls you up and says, hey, do you want to do this? Oh, yeah. You don't have to call the custodian. You don't have to call Directed IRA and say, oh, move this around. So the IRA LLC becomes kind of that parent company of your IRA, that, and for lack of a better word, that's kind of fun. You can I can redeploy investment. You can do multiple investments out of that LLC without having to go back to the custodian. So that can be nice. And you're just building this up and building it up, and next over the 5 years and over the 10 years. And it just gets to be really exciting because you have that flexibility with the LLC to pivot quickly and invest.
Yeah, and as you're building it up, and we do have clients that have multiple IRA LLCs, so they have it's one IRA. Just an example of a client that's got about a $20 million account that I was working with last week. He has one Roth IRA, but it owns about 4 or 5 IRA LLCs, just 100%. The reason he did that is because as he's accumulated these assets over the last 10 or 20 years, as he's been self-directing, is he wants the asset protection between the LLCs, right? So if you start growing $1 million or more of assets, or even $500,000, you might want to think about this. I've got a lot of different assets and investments, properties, notes, other self-directed investments in one LLC. Remember, if something happens on that, they can sue the LLC. They can't get at you, but they can get at what else is in the LLC. So if you separate out the LLCs, you may want to do that. But that's just a little side note there for any of you, as Mark was talking about, building that for the long haul. You could actually be using additional LLCs. Again, looking at that asset protection angle.
Love it. Okay. Now we're going down to 20,000 feet. And stick with this for a minute.
And falling fast.
We're falling fast. So you're like, okay, I see where I can do certain investments directly out of my IRA account. I'll go to the website at Directed IRA, download investment forms and self-directing forms, and all those things are there. Okay, I'm going to do this IRA LLC. Well, can I have partners? That's another show. We're going to come to that in the next couple episodes. I'm not sure if it'll be next week's, but we're going to have an episode where you can then see, oh, I can have multiple IRAs in an LLC. Yes, we will come to that. But what we're restricting this to today so that you can kind of stay laser focused is this is going to be an IRA LLC owned 100% by that IRA, which could have multiple LLCs, and those LLCs could have different purposes. But again, you're the manager of the LLC, and we're just going to stick with what we call, and as you get used to this terminology, you want to know this, it's called a single member LLC. It's owned 100% by that IRA. Could be a Roth, could be a 401k, could be an HSA. My HSA has an LLC. That's fine too. So any of those self-directed accounts can form an LLC to give you that flexibility and the administrative control and that asset protection. So pretty cool there. And maybe, like, how do we do this? Do we need to get there? Like,
yeah. Let's get there, and then let's talk about. Well, I want to say one other point on what you're talking about there, and then let's talk about how to set it up. The nice thing about the IRA owning it 100% is it is a disregarded entity for tax purposes. So there's no tax return for the IRS in a single member IRA LLC. Only thing you got to do is keep the LLC active with the state. Okay, now we do that with our company maintenance, company compliance program at Main Street Business Services if you want, where we make sure we handle the renewal. We'll do your annual minutes for the LLC as well. But basically what I'm saying is that's the only thing you got. You don't have to do a federal tax return for the LLC. So the single member LLC is nice in that regard. And remember, this isn't hitting your 1040. You don't own this LLC. Your IRA does, okay? Now, the other thing I was going to say on that, let's get to how to set up, because they'll flesh out some of this other stuff.
Yeah.
I just want to note that, like, the administrative burden of this is just keeping the LLC active with the state. There's not a tax return. When we get to partnering, you got multiple IRAs in there, or even you individually in your IRA, which is possible. Got to know the rules. You're going to have a partnership tax return. Yeah. Little more work. No tax due on a partnership return necessarily because IRAs own it, but it is a tax return. So the single member, 100% owned, is a lot smoother and easier. Yeah,
so the how-to, so you've decided. You're like, okay, I need this IRA LLC. I'm going to zoom in on that. And you have your reasoning. We recommend right out of the gate, get an appointment with one of the lawyers at the law firms. We have our sister company, KQS Lawyers, that works hand in glove with Directed IRA. All of our lawyers are trained on all these strategies. They're mini Marks and Matts. They're like just ready to go. And we've actually created a fee structure that's more streamlined and affordable for this purpose because it's really straightforward. It's a single member LLC. We want the attorney to meet with you, walk you through the do's and don'ts, answer questions that might come up as you dive deep in this podcast and dive deep into Matt's book. You're going to have additional questions based on your situation. So you meet with the lawyer. You've got a comfort letter on what the do's and don'ts are. You can feel comfortable that I've got good advice, and we'll form the LLC and then help you and coordinate it with Directed IRA to fund it so that you're like, oh my gosh, I got a real lawyer. I got a real trust company that knows what they're doing. They're going to bring this together for me, and they'll walk you through those steps during the formation of the LLC. And I think we're at $1,200. 12?
Yeah. With a lawyer, it's $1,200 to set up an IRA LLC. And by the way, this LLC is unique from your other LLCs.
Oh, you can't call LegalZoom.
Yeah, this is not a LegalZoom LLC or your lawyer that might have helped you, even that might be a business lawyer, do an LLC for your business, your rental properties. They're likely not going to understand what the heck an IRA LLC is. Whether you use our company at Directed IRA or any other IRA custodian, they're going to go through a compliance process to approve it. It needs to have all the provisions in there for IRAs owning an LLC, which is unique. The docs we use in our law firm for IRA LLCs are different from the docs we use for a regular LLC that you might personally own. So knowing there's a little specialty to it, but we try to be affordable for lawyers at that $1,200 price point. And then the IRA account's $495. Now remember, we call it an IRA LLC because you need two things. You need a self-directed IRA, and that's what we do at Directed IRA, and you need an LLC it's an IRA-specific type LLC that self-directed IRA is going to invest its money into. That LLC has the business checking account, as we talked about. Then the LLC goes out and makes the investments. So that's the two pieces. You need both. $1,200 for the IRA LLC. Our annual account fee is $495 at Directed IRA. And now you're off the races. You've got a lot of control. Now you can go self-direct and do all the strategies we were talking about.
Yeah, and as we do the setup, let's answer a few questions on the setup, which starts to get into the maintenance and do's and don'ts. Many of you have already set up an LLC before. So let's go through some basics here. You're going to be the manager of the LLC. You could have you and your spouse be managers, but typically it's so much easier with one manager, one owner, which is the IRA. You're not going to have a board of advisors, a board of directors. We talk about that a lot in our strategies, especially on the Main Street Business Podcast, about having a board. And you're not using this LLC to write off your home office, to write off auto, to write off all these things. This LLC is strictly for the IRA to do this project. And only expenses related to that project are allowed. You can't pay yourself.
Yeah,
you're not going
point.
to take draws. You're going to open a bank account. We got to fund it, and you're going to have that checkbook. That's super cool. These boundaries are going to be a little different than your typical LLC, and just know that, and it's okay. I think one of the biggest things Matt and I say over and over again is, this is not your LLC. Okay, can I just repeat that? It's your IRA's LLC. You're simply a fiduciary. You are the manager of this LLC and have to protect that IRA from yourself. And this IRS is very concerned about it. There are court cases on this. That's why we give you these boundaries, so that you're not going to get into problems. So that's what this LLC is about. And when you set it up, be ready for these little nuances.
Yeah. For example, Mark's mentioned a couple of them. You can't pay yourself a salary or any compensation. Okay. You can do stuff for the IRA LLC, what's considered managerial administrative tasks, but you don't get paid for it. Okay. There are some cases on that where a guy, Ellis versus Commissioner, had an IRA LLC and he's paying himself like $30,000 a year, a salary, to be the manager of it, which is dumb anyways, but he was doing it. And well, the IRS audited him. He had a prohibited transaction and he lost in tax court. He appealed it. He went to the U.S. Court of Appeals. He lost again. Okay. So, and now even before that case, that was in like 2013, we were advising clients on the IRA LLC. You can't take a salary to be clearly benefiting you. It's a prohibited transaction. Remember our last episode too about the prohibited transaction rules. Those rules for your IRA apply to your IRA LLC as well. Okay. So any checks to you or a family member, not going to be okay. Now, working on assets, and let's talk about real estate here. This is where this one comes
Matt,
up.
I need to fly to the rental property in Hawaii, and so that's a job. I'm the manager of the LLC, so it's not going to pay me, but it's got to cover my plane ticket. And I do like first class.
Yeah.
I think it's important.
Do that with your other LLC for that rental property in Hawaii, and you're like, but my rental property is in Duluth, Minnesota. I don't want to go there. All right.
Ooh,
anyway,
yes.
so I'm sorry for you in Duluth. That was not,
We just lost a Duluth listener.
Yeah, we lost a couple of them. All right. So, but the keep it clean is what we're saying with the expenses. A lot of times we're like, hey, we want you to expense stuff and write stuff off in your other businesses.
We'd normally write that off all day long.
We're like, yeah, that's for business, write that off. But here, only write off stuff specific to the asset. Like, for example, let's say you do have a rental property in Hawaii. Okay, it's got a pool, the pool cleaning, the maintenance, the landscaping, the repairs, the property management, like all that stuff's cool. Pay that from the IRA LLC. That's a legitimate expense. And in fact, you must pay that stuff from the IRA LLC, okay? But where we get into this, it's your personal travel to go visit a property, or you're like, well, it's buying me a laptop, or I'm writing off mileage, or a cell phone, or a home office. No. We're not doing that on the IRA LLC.
Yeah. Now, a couple other do's and don'ts. Do bookkeeping. Just because it's not your LLC, which I just emphasized, you have a duty as the manager's LLC to track the expenses. This IRA LLC someday is going to get shut down. The money's going to go back to the custodian. You've got to be able to have a paper trail here that you didn't just go hairy-carry with this. Now, you may do nothing wrong at all, but if you have terrible books, the IRS is going to assume you did something wrong. So just maintain books, do the QuickBooks the way you should, have a bank account, reconcile the checkbook, treat it and respect it like any other LLC. Just don't use it as your own personal bank account for expenses or travel or this or that. But do good bookkeeping.
Yeah, and that LLC business checking account, we've talked about it. This is something that does not have anything else commingled with it. This is separate from your other business. I'll set that up. This is separate from your other business checking accounts and either business accounts that you might have. So this IRA LLC business checking account, do not put personal money in it. Even when you open up the LLC bank account, a lot of people go like, well, I went to my local bank or credit union. They said I need to put $50 in to open it. Don't go there then. Go somewhere else. We have a bank we work with that's great at this stuff. That's not going to make you do that stuff. Only put the IRA funds into it to get it started. Oof. And the other point is you never take money from the LLC bank checking account. You don't own it. Your IRA does. You're like, well, Matt, I'm 60 now. I want to start taking money out of this thing. Send it back to the IRA, and then you take a distribution from your IRA. See, your IRA account at Directed IRA is still going to own this LLC. On your account at Directed IRA, it's going to say, what does my IRA own? It owns 100% of XYZ Investments LLC. XYZ Investments LLC is going to have a bank checking account. It's going to have other things. And you're record keeping that and tracking that. Keep good records. And like Mark said, do some bookkeeping, which you want to do just for good business management and understanding. Are you making money or not? Where are you losing money? Like, how do you, just for financial management, do that? So, but remember, don't touch that bank account. This is probably the number one thing that people mess up in this is they mess up the thinking, oh, I'll just take money out. Or the other error they do is, oh, I want to put in my next year's contribution of $7,000. I put it into the LLC. You can't do that. Your contribution's got to go to the IRA, and then you authorize us to send that additional $7,000 into the LLC.
Okay, wow, you jumped to a big topic right there. You opened it. I think we'll go back to that here in a minute, but if we may,
it's about cleaning up your bank checking account and having good process and procedures.
Yeah, and okay, and another thought or two as you are setting up this. I feel like I need to. I try to have this sixth sense of what our listeners are going through as they're processing all this. So I want to summarize a little bit where we're at now. So you've got your Directed IRA account open. You've funded it. You've rolled money over from an old 401k, whatever. You've determined that an IRA LLC would be a good fit for you. And the type of investments you want to do, you're like, this resonates with me. I've been wanting this Checkbook LLC. So you contact our office at the law firm or Directed. They'll marry the two situations. Yeah. We'll get that appointment set up for you. Everybody's very, very used to this. We're setting up an LLC every 15 minutes in the country. And so we've got a system here. So you call up, you make your appointment, you get with the lawyer, and you start asking questions and figuring this out, and you're like, awesome, I'm going to get it. Well, when they form the LLC, you're going to have a filing fee with the state wherever this LLC is formed. Now, the attorney will help you decide what state to form that LLC. It may be in the state you live, maybe in the state where your rental property is going to be. I don't know. So that's one of the reasons you want to use an attorney here, is so that it's tailored to you. And I just wanted to mention this banking thing. Matt brushed over it, but I think it's worth saying again. When you take your bank packet to go open up your little LLC bank account, we've all done that before, generally, as business owners. It can be a pain in the butt for an hour. You make an appointment nowadays and whatever, and you go and start to do this. The minute you say, this is owned by an IRA, I think they have a button under the table, and it helps 3 brains explode down the hallway. Because they're just like, oh my gosh, your IRA is opening an LLC. You know, they don't comprehend this. Yeah. Be ready for that. It's okay. Now, some of you that deal with smaller banks and you've got a great relationship with your banker, you can just say, hey, I'm the manager of this LLC. Here's the EIN. Here's the bank packet. Form the damn LLC bank account. And they go, no problem, Tom. Done. But if they start to give you problems, just say, you know what? Flip them the bird. Call our office again. Yeah. We'll recommend a bank, an online bank or some sort of banking institution that's a good fit for you that will be easier to establish and maintain. So we have so many clients that calls up, oh my gosh, you didn't tell me the bank was going to freak out. I'm telling you now. And the lawyers will help guide you through that too.
Yeah. We connect you with that in that process. So just know it's easy if you just follow our process. That's what we're saying here. And we streamlined it. We figured this out with the banks over the years on how to get it done and make it simple for you, because we want it simple for us.
Oh, yeah. And then, Matt, you're good at this. So I get the bank account formed. Mm-hmm. My money's not there yet. So then I call Directed IRA again and say, move my money. There's a bi-direction letter in there. Do you want to walk them through a little bit of what that might feel like?
Yeah. So when you're setting up the IRA LLC, there's a couple things happening at the same time. And this is what we'd recommend is get your account opened and then get the LLC going at the same time. And maybe you got to make an appointment and wait a few days or a week to get with one of the lawyers. But these lawyers that work in our firm, they've done this thousands of times. Okay, they're very experienced, at least hundreds of times. And so they know what they're doing. They've answered all the questions. They know how to make it efficient and get through what you're trying to do specifically. So while your account's getting opened, you should start your transfer or rollover process, because that could take a while. It might take a week for a rollover, a few days at least for a transfer. Maybe it's coming from Fidelity or whatever. But at the same time, the LLC can be getting set up. Because a lot of people come to us like, I got a deal I want to close in 2 weeks. Oh, really? We better get moving like 5 days ago. Let's move, okay? Yeah. So don't delay. Get the account going at the same time we get the LLC going. Because what's going to happen is the lawyers need to draft the documents. You got to sign. We got to then file it. When we got to get the docs back, then you got to get the bank account open, right? There's some stuff just on the LLC. But on the IRA side, we got to get your transfer or rollover over. Some companies are easy, like a Fidelity or something like that. It'll come in 2 to 3 days. If you're at XYZ administrator of your old 401k, it might take a week or two. And they might send a check, and that might hold. So just know you can be doing the two things at the same time if you're in a hurry. You don't got to do one and wait for that to get there and then do the other, because now you've expanded the time frame.
And then the day's going to come when the stars have aligned. My money's in my IRA account, and my LLC has a bank account. And you might put $100 of your own money in there to open that bank account.
No. Why would you do that?
Because you get in trouble if you do that.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that. So I'm saying you've got to get that bank account open.
I was saying you might want to, but don't.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's right.
Okay.
Because you got the money over here in your IRA, and you're trying to open this bank account, and so you've kind of got this chicken and the egg thing.
Yeah.
And you got to be careful. What do you recommend?
Use the banks that we have. They don't make you do that. They say, we know that your IRA owns this, and you're going to have $10,000, $100,000, $1 million coming over here soon.
Yep.
So we're not going to force you to put that deposit in. And so, but those are the two things. That's where we're trying to break it up of like opening the account, getting it funded, and getting the LLC. Even though it's one IRA LLC, it's two pieces: a self-directed IRA that has money in it, and an LLC with a checking account.
Yep. There's two accounts.
Yeah.
And it can, with us saying out the account, we got to say there's an
Yeah.
IRA account, and then there's a bank account. And
Yes.
so
Yeah.
you're going to then, that last step, once the stars have aligned and you've got your IRA account and your bank account, you're going to go, okay, I need to move X dollars. And you're going to decide. You're going to meet with the lawyer. They're going to help you decide, what you're trying to accomplish. And you may move the entire IRA account money. You may move part of it. Whatever. That's up to you. You're self-directing. That's the beauty. And then that money will get transferred through the right direction letter. You're going to work with the team at Directed IRA. They'll tell you what form to use, and you're going to transfer that money, or they'll move it for you in a variety of ways into that bank account.
Yeah.
And now on day 4, you got your Checkbook LLC.
Yeah. And let me go over a couple helpful tips, because a couple people are in different scenarios. If you're the one that's like, I got a deal going right now, okay, keep moving fast, but just get the money over. Maybe you've got $400,000 in your IRA at Fidelity, your traditional IRA, so you opened up a self-directed traditional IRA, but the deal you want to do is only $250 over here, so you just transfer over $250. That hits your IRA, then we wire it, we'll invest it into the LLC checking account, okay? And now you've got the $250 to go do the deal. You might be like, well, Matt, I've got, $300,000 in my account. I'm looking to do a deal for $150, but I'm looking still. Well, we like to get the IRA LLC going and maybe just send over $5 or $10 grand. That way, you've got the structure set up, you've got the self-directed IRA set up, you've got the IRA LLC checking account set up, you've got the bank account, and you've got $5 or $10 grand in it. Where you find a deal, like let's say a real estate deal, you can do the earnest money, you can put a deposit down, you can go move on it, and then get the other money over here within 30 days to close. So some of you, if you're like ready but don't have a deal like lined up, that's another good 2-step way to just get some cash over, get it into the LLC with $5 or $10 grand, so you got the structure ready, so you don't have to hustle to get everything together when the deal, because a lot of good deals, frankly, you got to move quickly on. And so that's another good idea for some of you that just want to get $5 to $10 grand going, start hunting, so to speak. And then know you've got other money that might be in the stock market or whatever you've been doing before. We can get that money over and get it in the LLC too.
Yeah. Well, now you're off to the races and you're investing, you've got your deal underway, you're watching the podcast on a regular basis or listening, you're reading Matt's book, my book, you're coming to conferences, you're upgrading your professionals, you're going to the next level. And this is what wealthy people do. Wealthy people geek out on this. This is not set it, forget it. You want to be engaged in this and continue to learn and help, at least be on the ship as the captain. You're going to have your first mate, your second mate, and your crew, and that's us. We're here to help you lead your ship to wherever you want it to go. Now, a couple last final notes, if I may, is we've said there's no tax return for a single member LLC. That's true. But based on the type of deal you're doing, and we're going to talk about using leverage in some other podcasts, you might borrow money in your IRA to do a real estate deal. You might invest in a restaurant. I don't know. So there's going to be what's called a UBIT tax or a UDFI tax that could apply. And there would be a separate type of tax return needed for your IRA, but not for the LLC itself. It's a single member LLC, so there's no tax return for that. So we want to provide a little distinction. But make sure you continue to listen to these podcasts in sequence right now. We're going to talk about leverage. We're going to talk about UDFI or UBIT. And those are going to be other things you're going to want to know as you maintain this structure.
Yeah. Awesome. There's a lot more to learn about this. And that's why we've got a little more detail on this, but it's not complicated. And that's the one thing I want to make sure everyone understands. Even though we do have hundreds of episodes here on our podcast, and we got all the books, and you can geek out on this. We've got a full day conference, the Self-Directed IRA Summit, by the way, coming up. The next one, April 26th in Austin, Texas. Go to strasummit.com. I'll be speaking, Mark's speaking, some other great speakers. Also other people doing this. People that have $1 million accounts that have been doing this for a while that you can go network with and hear from and what they've done to be successful. So get over to strasummit.com. Also virtual, if you can't make it to Austin.
Yeah, and we have the Tax and Legal 360 conference that's going to be in June, first week in June, I think, in Orange County. And we'll have 2 or 3 classes on this topic, and you're there to associate with other professionals. This is almost half business owners and half accountants and lawyers from all over the country, just mixing and mingling and networking, and it'll really help you up your game as well. So continue to stay involved.
Yeah. All right. Well, get to directedira.com. You get started on the self-directed IRA account. We actually have an IRA LLC intake form there that starts getting your LLC going, connects you over to the law firm where you get the appointment going. And just know we're here to help support you. You got the law firm for all the tax and legal questions, the team at Directed IRA helping make sure your account's operated right, set up properly, and running smooth. And then the nice thing about this is once this is set up, you're in control of your destiny for the retirement you want. And I know sometimes that can be scary, but it can be empowering too. If you're one of those people that's like, I just want to have control of my retirement. I want to feel more connected to it. I want to be investing in the deals and the things I know and care about. That's what self-directing is all about. And that's what you can do with the IRA LLC structure.
Thanks, everyone. And we'll see you next week for another episode of the Directed IRA Podcast. And what's our slogan? Invest on, dream on?
Stay calm, self-direct on.
Ooh, I like
You want to say it? Close it out?
May I say that? Okay.
Yeah.
Stay calm, self-direct on. So you need a radio voice. Stay calm, self-direct on. How was that? No?
Not as good.
Okay. See you next week.
See you guys.